Hey students, hope you've been enjoying these chapters. We're going to jump into chapter 6 now, the happy medium. Very interesting part of the book, so I'll read it straight through. Again, they focused their eyes on the crystal ball. The earth, with its fearful covering of dark shadows, swam out of view, and they moved rapidly through the Milky Way. And there was the thing again. Watch, the medium told them. The darkness seemed to seethe and writhe. Was this meant to comfort them? Suddenly there was a great burst of light through the darkness, and the light spread out, and where it touched the darkness disappeared. The light spread until the patch of the dark thing had vanished, and there was only a gentle shining, and through the shining came the stars, clear and pure. Then, slowly, the shining dwindled until it too was gone, and there was nothing but stars and starlight. No shadows, no fear. Only the stars and the clear darkness of space, quite different from the fearful darkness of the thing. You see, the medium cried, smiling happily, it can be overcome. It's being overcome all the time. And guys, just as I'm reading this, I'm thinking of the Gospel, the book of John, chapter 1, where the light shines in the darkness and the light overcomes the darkness. It's a perfect theme to kind of pull together. Mrs. Whatsit sighed, and a sigh so sad that Meg wanted to put her arms around her and comfort her. Tell us exactly what happened then, please, Charles Wallace said in a small voice. It was a star, Mrs. Whatsit said sadly. A star giving up its life in battle with the thing. It won. Oh yes, my children, it won. But it lost its life in the winning. Mrs. Witch spoke again, and her voice sounded tired, and they knew that speaking was a tremendous effort for her. It was not so long ago for you, was it? She asked. Mrs. Whatsit shook her head. Charles Wallace went up to Mrs. Whatsit. I see. Now I understand. You were a star once, weren't you? Mrs. Whatsit covered her face with her hands as though she were embarrassed and nodded. And you did what that star just did. With her face still covered, Mrs. Whatsit nodded again. Charles Wallace looked at her very solemnly. I should like to kiss you. Mrs. Whatsit took her hands down from her face and pulled Charles Wallace to her in a quick embrace. He put his arms around her neck and pressed his cheek against hers, and then kissed her. Meg felt that she would have liked to kiss Mrs. Whatsit too, but after Charles Wallace, anything that she or Calvin did or said would be anticlimax. She contented herself with looking at Mrs. Whatsit, even though she was used to Mrs. Whatsit's odd get-up, and the very oddness of it was what made her seem so comforting. She realized with a fresh shock that it was not Mrs. Whatsit herself that she was seeing at all. The true Mrs. Whatsit, Meg realized, was beyond human understanding. What she saw was only the game Mrs. Whatsit was playing. It was an amusing and charming game, a game full of both laughter and comfort, but it was only the tiniest facet of all the things that Mrs. Whatsit could be. I didn't mean to tell you, Mrs. Whatsit faltered. I didn't mean to ever let you know, but oh dears, I did so love being a star. You're still very young, Mrs. Witch said, her voice faint and chiding. The medium sat looking happily at the star-filled sky and her ball, smiling and nodding and chuckling gently, but Meg noticed that her eyes were drooping, and suddenly her head fell forward and she gave a faint snore. Poor thing, Mrs. Whatsit said. We've worn her out. It's very hard work for her. Please, Mrs. Whatsit, Meg asked, what happens now? Why are we here? What do we do next? Where is Father? When are we going to him? She clasped her hands pleadingly. See, Meg is very impatient. She has to do everything now. One thing at a time, love, Mrs. Watson said. Mrs. Who cut in. As paredes têm ouvidos. That's Portuguese. Walls have ears. Yes, let's go outside, Mrs. Watson said. Come, we'll let her sleep. As they turned to go, the medium jerked her head up and smiled at them radiantly. You weren't going to go without saying goodbye to me, were you? She asked him. We thought we'd just let you sleep, dear, Mrs. Watson patted the medium's shoulder. We worked you terribly hard, and we know you must be very tired. But I was going to give you some ambrosia, or nectar, or at least some tea. At this, Meg realized that she was hungry. How much time had passed since they had their bowls of stew, and she wondered. But Mrs. Watson said, Oh, thank you, dear, but I think we'd better get going. They don't need to eat. They don't need to eat, Charles Wallace whispered to me. At least not food, the way we do. Eating's just a game with them. As soon as we get organized again, I'd better remind them that they'll have to feed us sooner or later. Coffee break. Oui. The medium smiled and nodded. It does seem as though I should be able to do something nice for you, and after having to show those poor children such horrid things. Would they like to see their mother before they go? Could we see Father? Meg asked. No. We are going to your father, Meg. Don't be so impatient. But she could see her mother, couldn't she? The medium reader. Oh, why not, Mrs. Watson? But it won't take long, and it can't do any harm. And Calvin, too? Meg asked. Could he see his mother, too? Calvin touched Meg in a quick gesture, and whether it was thanks or of apprehension, she wasn't sure. I think it is a mistake, Mrs. Witch, disapproving. But since you have mentioned it, I suppose you must go ahead. I hate it when she gets cross, Mrs. Watson said, and glancing over at Mrs. Witch. The trouble is, she always seems to be right. But I really don't see how it could hurt, and it might make you all feel better. Go on, medium dear. The medium, smiling and humming softly, turned the crystal ball a little between her hands. Stars, comets, planets flashed across the sky, and then the earth came into view again, the darkened earth, closer, closer, till it filled the globe, and they had somehow gone through the darkness until the soft white of the clouds and the gentle outline of the continents shone clearly. Calvin's mother first, Meg whispered to the medium. The globe became hazy, cloudy. Then shadows began to solidify, to clarify, and they were looking into an untidy kitchen with a sink full of unwashed dishes. In front of the sink stood an unkempt woman with gray hair stringing about her face. Her mouth was open, and Meg could see the toothless gums, and it seemed that she could almost hear her screaming at two small children who were standing by her. Then she grabbed a long wooden spoon from the sink and began whacking one of the children. Oh dear, the medium murmured, and the pitcher began to dissolve. I didn't really... It's all right, Calvin said. I think I would rather that you guys knew. But now instead of reaching out for Calvin for safety, Meg took his hands in hers, not saying anything in words, but trying to tell him by the pressure of her fingers what she felt. If anyone had told her only the day before that she, Meg, the snaggle-toothed, the myopic, the clumsy, would be taking a boy's hand to offer him comfort and strength, particularly a popular and important boy like Calvin, the idea would have been beyond her comprehension. But now it seemed as natural to want to help and protect Calvin as it did Charles Wallace. The shadows were swirling in the crystal again. As they cleared, Meg began to recognize her mother's lab at home. Mrs. Murray was sitting perched on her high stool, writing away on a sheet of paper and a clipboard on her lap. She's writing Father, Meg thought, the way she always does, every night. The tears that she could never learned to control, swam to her eyes as she watched. Mrs. Murray looked up from her letter, almost as though she were looking toward the children, and then her head drooped and she put it down on the paper and sat there, huddled up, letting herself relax into an unhappiness that she never allowed her children to see. And now the desire for tears left Meg. The hot, protective anger she had felt for Calvin when she looked into his home, she now felt turned toward her mother. "Let's go! Let's do something!" "She's always so right," Mrs. Whatsit murmured, looking towards Mrs. Witch. "Sometimes I wish she'd just say, 'I told you so,' and have it done with it." "Well, I only meant to help," the medium wailed. "Oh, medium dear, don't feel so badly," Mrs. Whatsit said swiftly. "Look at something cheerful. Do. I can't bear to have you distressed." "It's all right," Meg assured the medium earnestly. "Truly it is, Mrs. Medium, and we thank you very much." "Are you sure?" the medium asked, brightening. "Of course. It really helped ever so much because it made me mad. And when I'm mad, I don't have room to be scared." Remember that about Meg. When she's mad, can't get scared. "Well, kiss me goodbye for good luck then," the medium said. Meg went over to her and gave her a quick kiss. So did Charles Wallace. The medium looked smilingly at Calvin and winked. "I want the young man to kiss me, too. I always did love red hair. And it'll give you good luck, laddie me love." Calvin bent down, blushing, and awkwardly kissed her cheek. The medium tweaked his nose. "You've got a lot to learn, my boy. Now goodbye, medium dear, and many thanks," Mrs. Whatsit said. "I dare say we'll see you in an eon or two." "Where are you going in case I want to tune in?" the medium asked. "Camazotz," Mrs. Whatsit told her. Where and what was Camazotz? Meg did not like the sound of the word or the way in which Mrs. Whatsit pronounced it. "But please don't distress yourself on our behalf. You know you don't like looking in on the dark planets, and it's very upsetting to us when you aren't happy." So remember that word, remember that planet, Camazotz. It's going to be very important in the remainder of the book. "Show coffee. But I must know what happens to the children," the medium asked. "It's my worst trouble, getting fond. If I didn't get fond, I could be happy all the time. Oh, well, ho-hum, I managed to keep pretty jolly, and a little snooze will do wonders for me right now. Goodbye, every..." And her word got lost in the general bzzz of a snore. "Come," Mrs. Witch ordered, and they followed her out of the darkness of the cave to the impersonal grayness of the medium's planet. "Now, children, you must not be frightened at what is going to happen," Mrs. Witch warned. "Stay angry, little Meg," Mrs. Whatsit whispered. "You will need all your anger now." Without warning, Meg was swept into nothingness again. This time the nothingness was interrupted by a feeling of clammy coldness, such as she had never felt before. The coldness deepened and swirled all about her and through her, was filled with a new and strange kind of darkness that was a completely tangible thing, a thing that wanted to eat and digest her like some enormous, malignant beast of prey. Then the darkness was gone. Had it been the shadow, the black thing? Had they had to travel through it to get to her father? There was the by now familiar tingling in her hands and feet and the push through hardness. And she was on her feet, breathless and unharmed, standing beside Calvin and Charles Wallace. "Is this Camazotz?" Charles Wallace asked as Mrs. Whatsit materialized in front of him. "Yes," she answered. "Now let us just stand and get our breath and look around." They were standing on a hill, and as Meg looked about her, she felt that it could easily be a hill on earth. There were the familiar trees she knew so well at home. Birches, pines, maples. And though it was warmer than it had been when they had so precipitously left the apple orchard, There was a faintly autumnal touch to the air. Near them were several small trees with reddened leaves, very like sumac, and a big patch of goldenrod like flowers. And she looked down the hill and she could see the smokestacks of a town. And it must have been one of any number of familiar towns. There seemed to be nothing strange or different or frightening in the landscape. But Mrs. Whatsit came to her and put an arm around her comfortingly. "I can't stay here with you, you know, love," she said. "You three children will be on your own. We'll be near you. We'll be watching you. But you will not be able to see us or ask us for help. And we will not be able to come to you." "But is Father here?" Meg asked. "Yes." "But where? When will we see him?" She was poised for running as though she were going to sprint off immediately to wherever Father was. I cannot tell you. You'll just have to wait until the propitious moment." Charles Wallace looked steadily at Mrs. Whatsit. "Are you afraid for us?" "A little. But if you weren't afraid to do what you did when you were a star, why would you be afraid for us now?" "But I was afraid," Mrs. Whatsit said gently. She looked steadily at each of the three children in turn. "You will need help," she told them, "but all I'm allowed to give you is a little talisman. Calvin, your great gift is your ability to communicate with all kinds of people. So for you, I will strengthen this gift. Meg, I give you your faults." "My faults?" Meg cried. "Your faults." "But I'm always trying to get rid of my faults." "Yes," Mrs. Whatsit said. "However, I think you'll find they'll come in handy in Kamazotz. Charles Wallace, to you I can give only the resilience of your childhood." From somewhere Mrs. Who's glasses glimmered and they heard her voice. "Calvin," she said, "a hint. For you, a hint. Listen well." Okay, here's like a puzzle. Shakespeare. "For that he was a spirit too delicate to act their earthly and abhorred commands, refusing their grand hests, they did confine him by help of their most potent ministers, and in their most unmitigable rage into a cloven pine, within which rift imprisoned he didst painfully remain. I'll explain this later, but this is a puzzle as to where Father is." "Shakespeare, The Tempest." "Where are you, Mrs. Who?" Charles Wallace asked. "Where's Mrs. Witch?" "We cannot come to you now." Mrs. Who's voice blew to them like the wind. She says in German, "Auswis bin ich nicht, doch viel ist mir bestwitch. Goethe. I do not know everything. Still many things I understand." "That is for you, Charles. Remember that you do not know everything." And the voice redirected to Meg. "And to you I leave my glasses, little blind as a bat, but do not use them except as a last resort. Save them for the final moment of peril." And as she spoke, there was another shimmer of spectacles, and then it was gone, and the voice faded out with it. The spectacles were in Meg's hand. She put them carefully into the breast pocket of her blazer, and the knowledge that they were there somehow made her a little less afraid. "To all three of you I give my command," Mrs. Witch said. "Go down into the town. Go together. Do not let them separate you. Be strong." There was a flicker and then it vanished. Meg shivered. Mrs. Whatsit must have seen the shiver, for she patted Meg on the shoulder, and then she turned to Calvin. "Take care of Meg." "I can take care of Meg," Charles Wallace said rather sharply. "I always have." Mrs. Whatsit looked at Charles Wallace, and the creaky voice seemed to somehow both to soften and deepen at the same time. "Charles Wallace, the danger here is greatest for you." "Why?" "Because of what you are. Just exactly because of what you are would be by far the most vulnerable. You must stay with Meg and Calvin. You must not go off on your own. Beware of pride, and arrogance, Charles, for they may betray you. At the tone of Mrs. Whatsit's voice, both warning and frightening, Meg shivered again, and Charles Wallace butted up against Mrs. Whatsit in the way he often did with his mother, whispering, "Now I think I know what you mean about being afraid." "Only a fool is not afraid," Mrs. Whatsit told him. "Now go." And where she had been, there was only sky and grasses and a small rock. "Come on," Meg said impatiently. "Come on, let's go." She was completely unaware that her voice was trembling like an aspen leaf. She took Charles Wallace and Calvin each by the hand and started down the hill. Below them the town was laid out in harsh, angular patterns.